Hey MCARBO Brotherhood, we're excited to introduce the KEL-TEC Sub-2000 single point sling mount. This is an ambidextrous single point sling mount for both left and right handed shooters. This is a quick installation and an excellent upgrade for your Sub-2000, a must have. Now, keeping with the pistol caliber carbine ideology, we don't want to weigh this thing down. We want it to be a utilitarian firearm so that we can fold it, collapse it, stow it in a bag in a hurry, or get it under the seat of the truck, or whatever we're doing with it. We don't want it to have a traditional heavy sling option on here where you've got a big old piece of steel up front and a big old piece of steel in the back, and you got a big old sling in between, and you're trying to fold it but it's too tight and it won't fold, this and that. We want it to be functional. So the single point sling mount is going to do just that. It's going to rest right here on the castle nut. It's going to provide excellent strength and durability, being that it is hard coat plated, black anodizing, and it's going to last a very, very long time, and it's going to give you a number of options. So whether you're a left-handed shooter or right-handed shooter, the single point sling is the solution, and it's ideal for this type of carbine. This is what we want. So being that we're not going to bog it down with a bunch of weight and a bunch of useless stuff, we're trying to keep it sleek, thin, lean, mean. We've got this single point sling mount that's going to allow us that option. So let's go ahead and dive in and take a look at how to install this. Before we get started together, let's make sure our firearms are clear. So go ahead and drop the magazine, source ammunition, make sure that the weapon is on safe. All right, we're going to charge it back. We're going to check the chamber, make sure there's no rounds in there. We're going to check the bolt face, make sure there's not a round just hanging on there. And then we're going to check the magazine well, make sure that there's no ammunition in there. Alright, this weapon's clear. Alright, first thing we need to do is remove the buttstock. I'm going to go ahead and take my punch, tap out the buttstock pin. Okay, pin's out, here's the buffer, remove that. Go ahead and remove your buttstock. And we'll go ahead and slide charging handle back a little bit so we can remove the recoil spring. That will allow us to remove the charging handle. Before we put the single point sling mount on, let's talk quickly about it. So it's universal, you can put it on either side, meaning that the mount can go on this way or it can go on this way, it doesn't matter. You'll see that there are two holes, so there's a big hole on one side and then there's a smaller threaded hole on the other. So the idea is the screw goes through the big hole and then it meets up with the threads on the other side, and that's how you tighten it down. So I guess the question is, which side do you want the head of this screw to be on? Do you want it on the left side, the right side? Your choice. Before we insert the single point sling mount, I want to point out, if you've got a Gen 2 and you haven't put Loctite on your castle nut, it's going to spin. So then keep in mind, we're putting a single point sling attachment on this castle nut. We don't want that attachment to spin with the castle nut. So I highly recommend, if you've done the target trigger installation in the spring kit and you haven't put any thread locker or Loctite on this, I would go ahead and do it now. Make sure, just to make sure you don't have to tear it all down and do this over again. It's just a good idea. Get it out of the way, put it on there, and that way you got a good, stable, secure surface to put the single point sling mount on. Now go ahead and slide your single point sling mount down the receiver onto the castle nut. Get it where you want it, as close to the end of the castle nut as possible, but don't go too far. It'll give you a little grief trying to get it straight if you do. So get it started, grab your 7/64 Allen key, and what we're going to do is we're going to snug it up, but we're not going to crank down on it all the way yet. So it's nice and snug. Now we're going to look at it from the top here. So it wasn't quite straight. Now we're going to get it right where we want it. Make those final adjustments. Alright, that's where we want it. Now we're going to crank it down and really tighten it up. Oh, that's awesome. That's what we want. Perfect. Look at that. Look how fast that was. Now we've got a little more utility with this firearm. So let's go ahead and put the rest of it back together. So go ahead and grab your charging handle and reinsert that into the hole there on the bolt. Slide it forward, then grab your recoil spring and insert that all the way inside the bolt. Then grab your buttstock, insert that. Line those holes up, then grab your buffer and go ahead and insert it like this. Okay, and then this is a real easy trick, is put the buttstock pin on the bottom and then press in on your buffer, and then just manipulate those holes as you're using the weight of the firearm, pushing down on that pin to get you in there. Alright, there we go. Now let's take a nice close look at what we did. I mean, look at that. We've got an ambidextrous single point sling attachment on our firearm now. This is going to give us so much more utility than what we had before. I mean, you can imagine not having a sling, if you're going to be running around with this firearm for a while, moving and shooting, kind of be a pain. Not to mention the lack of stability, not to mention your hand, at least one of your hands is stuck on the firearm unless you're going to set it down, but not really recommended. So look, grab a single point sling and go ahead and put it on and see what it looks like. Look at that. Yeah. You can grab these slings anywhere online. I mean, 15 to 30, 40 bucks, whatever you want to spend. This is a fairly cheap one, but it does the trick. Look at that. So much more utility with this firearm. And the greatest thing, we can still collapse it. You can leave the sling on it. You can stow it like this. It's not going to impede any of the function that we already have with the firearm. We're not sacrificing anything, which is what I like the most. We're just adding more utility. There you have it, guys. An excellent upgrade for your KEL-TEC Sub-2000. The single point sling mount by MCARBO, backed by the 100% lifetime guarantee. It's going to add more functionality and utility to your firearm, and it's not going to compromise or reduce any of the functionality that you currently have. This is a must-have. Thank you for watching, and as always, happy shooting.